Picture this. You're scrolling through Pinterest, seeing those gorgeous garden photos, and you think, I can totally do that. Fast forward 3 months and you're staring at a patch of withered plants, wondering where it all went wrong. Here's the thing, every successful gardener has been exactly where you are right now, making the same costly mistakes that could have been easily avoided. Today, I'm sharing the hard-earned wisdom from gardeners who've been through the trenches, so you can skip the heartbreak and go straight to harvesting fresh vegetables from your very own thriving garden. Ever wonder why some gardens flourish while others fail before they even get started? The answer usually lies in 3 critical decisions most beginners get wrong from day one. Location is everything, yet it's the most overlooked factor. One gardener shared how they planted their entire first garden on a slope, only to watch every single seed wash down into the storm drain after the first heavy rain. Another common disaster? Choosing that convenient spot near the house that happens to be in complete shade. Most vegetables need 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight daily, but beginners often prioritize convenience over growing conditions. Then there's the water source problem. Placing your garden far from a hose connection turns daily watering into a dreaded chore that eventually gets skipped. The soil nightmare is real, and it's probably the biggest garden killer out there. Here's what typically happens. You dig up your backyard dirt, thinking soil is soil, and fill your new raised beds with what's essentially clay-packed earth. One experienced gardener described how their soil turned into swimming pools after the first rain, because the clay was so dense that water couldn't penetrate. They spent an entire day removing all that useless dirt and starting over with proper growing medium. Real garden soil needs organic matter, proper drainage, and living microorganisms, not the compacted stuff from your yard. Timing failures crush dreams faster than anything else. Planting tender vegetables too early means one unexpected frost wipes out weeks of work. But planting too late means your tomatoes are still green when the first fall freeze hits. Every region has specific frost dates that determine your growing season, yet most beginners plant based on what they see at the garden centre, rather than what actually works in their climate. Learning your last spring frost and first fall frost dates isn't optional. It's the foundation of garden success. Speaking of foundation mistakes, there's one trap that catches nearly every new gardener: the more is better mindset that leads to complete overwhelm. You know that feeling when you're flipping through a seed catalogue or walking through the garden centre. Everything looks amazing, and before you know it, your cart is loaded with 40 different varieties because you want to grow everything. One seasoned gardener confessed to planting 40 tomato plants in her first year, thinking she'd hit the jackpot. Instead, she got maybe 5 decent tomatoes total because she couldn't properly care for that many plants. Here's what really happens when you go big too fast. Every single plant has different needs, different watering schedules, different pest problems, different harvest times. Tomatoes need staking and pruning, peppers need consistent moisture, squash plants sprawl everywhere and attract specific bugs. When you're learning what each plant requires, managing 5 to 7 vegetables is challenging enough. Multiply that by 20 varieties, and you're setting yourself up for failure. The magic number for first-year success. Stick to 5 to 7 different vegetables maximum. This gives you enough variety to keep things interesting while keeping the learning curve manageable. Focus on mastering those few crops really well rather than struggling with dozens of half-dead plants. But here's the key. Choose vegetables your family actually eats. Don't plant Japanese eggplant because it looks exotic if nobody in your house likes eggplant. Don't dedicate precious space to kale if your kids won't touch it. Make a list of what you buy at the grocery store regularly, then grow those things. This way, every harvest directly saves you money and gets used rather than rotting in your fridge while you feel guilty about wasting your hard work. Start small, master the basics, then expand your garden knowledge and size each subsequent year. Building on that less is more approach, let's talk about the spacing mistakes that turn promising gardens into crowded disasters. Picture tiny seedlings sitting in your garden bed with what seems like acres of empty space between them. Your first instinct: squeeze more plants into those gaps because all that soil looks wasteful. This thinking destroys more beginner gardens than pests and diseases combined. Here's why overcrowding kills your harvest dreams. When plants are crammed together, they compete for everything: nutrients, water, sunlight, and air circulation. The result? Weak, spindly plants that produce almost nothing. Worse yet, that lack of airflow creates the perfect environment for fungal diseases to spread like wildfire through your entire garden. Slugs and other pests also love hiding in those dense, humid plant jungles you've accidentally created. The solution is simpler than you think. Just follow the spacing guidelines on your seed packets or plant tags. When they say 12 inches apart, they mean it. Those recommendations are based on the mature size of the plant, not the tiny seedling size you're looking at today. A single winter squash plant can easily spread 6 feet in every direction by the end of summer. But spacing isn't just about plant-to-plant distance. Your garden layout needs walking space too. Plan pathways that are at least 24 inches wide, so you can actually get in there to weed, water and harvest without trampling your crops. One gardener learned this lesson the hard way when she realized she couldn't reach the center of her beds without stepping on plants. If you're building raised beds, don't place them so close together that you can barely squeeze between them. You'll be spending time on your knees weeding and harvesting, so give yourself room to work comfortably. Trust the spacing recommendations, resist the urge to cram everything together, and your plants will reward you with abundant harvests. Now that you've got your spacing figured out, let's dive into the 4 non-negotiables that determine whether your garden thrives or just survives. Sunlight is fuel, and most vegetables are hungry for it. The magic number is 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight daily, but here's what trips up beginners. They eyeball a spot and think it gets enough sun without actually tracking it. Spend a day watching how light moves across your chosen area. That morning, sun might disappear behind your neighbor's tree by noon, leaving your tomatoes struggling in shade. If you're stuck with partial shade, focus on leafy greens like lettuce and spinach rather than fighting nature with sun-loving peppers. Watering deeply seems straightforward until you realize you're doing it completely wrong. The biggest mistake? Light. Frequent watering that trains roots to stay shallow and weak. Instead, water deeply once or twice a week, soaking the soil thoroughly. This forces roots to grow down seeking moisture, creating stronger, more drought-resistant plants. New transplants are the exception. They need daily water for their first week while establishing roots. Living soil preparation separates successful gardens from disappointing ones. Your plants need more than dirt. They need living soil rich with organic matter. Skip the temptation to use whatever you dug up from your yard. Invest in quality compost, aged manure, or bagged garden soil. Your soil should crumble in your hand, not form clay clumps or turn to dust. Timing trumps enthusiasm every single time. Those beautiful tomato plants at the garden centre in April will sulk or die if planted too early. Learn your area's last frost date and plan backward from there. Cool season crops like lettuce and radishes can handle light frost, but warm season plants like tomatoes and peppers need consistently warm soil and air temperatures. Patience pays off with healthier plants and bigger harvests. Drop a comment and tell me which of these basics you've been struggling with most in your garden. After mastering those fundamentals, your plant selection can make the difference between beginner success and frustration. Why do some new gardeners thrive while others quit after one season? It often comes down to choosing plants that want to succeed rather than fighting uphill battles with finicky varieties. Lettuce and leafy greens are your secret weapons for instant gratification. They grow fast, tolerate mistakes, and give you multiple harvests from the same plants. Radishes pop up in just 3 weeks, proving that yes, you actually can grow food. Herbs like basil and cilantro are nearly foolproof and save you serious money since those tiny grocery store packages cost more than an entire plant that produces for months. Here's what to avoid in year 1: seeds and tomatoes. Seeds seem cheaper, but they add complexity you don't need while learning basics. Temperature, moisture, and timing have to be perfect, and failure feels devastating when nothing sprouts. Start with transplants from the nursery instead. As for tomatoes, they're the holy grail that every beginner wants, but they require staking, pruning, pest management, and disease prevention. Cherry tomatoes are more forgiving than large varieties if you insist on trying them. Think cool season versus warm season when planning your garden timeline. local crops like spinach, peas and carrots actually prefer cooler weather and can handle light frost. Plant these in early spring and again in fall. Warm season crops need heat. Think peppers, beans and cucumbers. These go in after your soil has warmed up completely. Most importantly, grow what you eat, not what you think you should eat. If your family goes through bags of salad mix every week, dedicate space to lettuce varieties. If you use fresh herbs constantly, prioritize basil and parsley over exotic vegetables nobody will eat. Your garden should reduce your grocery bill and improve your meals, not create guilt over wasted produce rotting in your refrigerator. With your plant choices sorted, let's talk about the mindset that separates gardeners who stick with it from those who give up after the first challenge. You're going to share your harvest whether you want to or not. Bugs, birds and other critters consider your garden their personal buffet, and fighting this reality will drive you crazy. One wise gardener shared the perfect perspective. Plant 2 of everything, 1 for you and 1 for them. Expect some pest damage and plan accordingly rather than reaching for pesticides at the first sign of nibbled leaves. Failure isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. That row of lettuce that bolted in the heat. Now you know to plant it earlier next season. Those tomato plants that succumbed to blight. You've learned why airflow and spacing matter. Every dead plant represents knowledge gained, not personal failure. Seasoned gardeners have killed more plants than beginners have ever grown, and that's exactly how they became experts. Your garden will teach you to think ahead, because plants don't wait for your schedule. If you want fresh tomatoes in July, you need to start thinking about them in March. Fall vegetables get planted in the heat of summer, which feels completely backward until you understand plant timing. This forward thinking becomes second nature, but initially requires conscious effort to stay ahead of the seasons. Gardening isn't a one-season hobby. It's a lifelong skill that improves with experience. Your first garden won't be your best garden, and that's perfectly normal. Each season builds on the previous one as you learn your soil, understand your local growing conditions, and discover which varieties thrive in your specific environment. The vegetables you grow yourself taste better than anything you can buy because they're picked at peak ripeness, not shipped across the country weeks ago. Embrace the learning process, celebrate small wins, and remember that even expert gardeners are still experimenting and learning new things every single season. Starting a garden feels overwhelming at first, but remember that every expert was once a beginner who made these exact same mistakes. Start small, focus on the basics, and give yourself permission to learn as you go. Your future self will thank you for taking that first step toward growing your own fresh, delicious vegetables. If you're ready to dive deeper into specific growing techniques, check out this next video where I'll show you awesome tips that will help to improve your gardening skills.